What's going on, guys? Just B here, and it is a rainy day in Toronto. I have the day off of work and I thought I'd make a video about 6 reasons why you should get the M1 MacBook Air over the M1 MacBook Pro right now. Before I get into the video, if I could kindly ask you guys to hit the subscribe button and also like this video if you found that it was helpful. I really do appreciate it and it'll help my channel grow. Getting right into it, the first reason why you should get the M1 MacBook Air over the M1 MacBook Pro is the price. The M1 MacBook Air starts at $999 US and the M1 MacBook Pro is $1,300 US. Now, what do you get for the difference? On the Pro, you get the fan, you get the touch bar, you get an extra 100 nits of brightness coming in at 500 versus 400 on the MacBook Air. And you also get an extra core at the base model, but you can configure the M1 MacBook Air with the extra core as well. So other than that, you don't get much of a difference. And let's go through some of the things that you get, starting with the most important, which might be the fan. The fan that you get on the Pro is necessary. If you're doing a lot of productivity work for a sustained period of time, that fan is gonna come in handy. That is a given, there's no argument. But if you look at a lot of reviews on YouTube or any videos commenting on the MacBook Pro, a lot of people are surprised to even hear the fan. It does not come on often from what I've seen other YouTubers say about the M1 MacBook Pro. It stays cool, and that's because the M1 chip is super efficient. That's the same chip that's in this. The touch bar is a good addition. However, I never use the touch bar. Is the touch bar really worth it? Do you use the touch bar? I never use the touch bar. The only thing I used it for was upping the brightness or turning down the volume. Other than that, I never used it in Final Cut. I just generally never used it. Sometimes it didn't work. I think it's more of a gimmick, and I appreciate that on the M1 MacBook Air, you don't have it. You have the full function row keys, which I'll talk about in a bit. They're not really crazy differences that make the $300 worth it. The extra core is a benefit, but the base model MacBook Air with the 7 cores is plenty efficient. The difference that you get with the extra core is quite minimal. Really, you could still do a lot of things on the 7 core MacBook Air from what I've gathered. My MacBook Air is the 8 core, 512 gigs of storage, so it's a bit more capable, but I stuck with 8 gigs of RAM and I could still do a lot of things, including editing 4K videos, editing photos in Lightroom, and many things in my workflow. And that really goes into my next point, which is that they both have the M1 chip. This MacBook Air has the M1 chip, the MacBook Pro has the M1 chip. Same chip. However, again, the ones on the Pro has 8 cores, whereas if you go for the base model of the Air, you'll get the 7 core M1 chip. Again, very minimal. So it's not like in the past where if you want to get the more processing power, you'd have to go for the Pro. You do not have to do that. That's of the past. Apple changed the game with that. It's really the same chip, but you get the benefit of the fan, which again, it might not be as handy as you think it is in the long term, unless of course you're doing crazy things. But the M1 chip in this is a beast. It is one of the best chips that I've ever used. I'm able to do a lot without stutter. So another thing that is different is the design. Apple created the MacBook Air line with the idea that this is going to be a device that you could put anywhere. It's portable, easy to carry around. You could throw it in your book bag, bring it to campus, or you could bring it to your business meeting in your side bag, and you're not straining your back, or it's not a hassle to carry this. The MacBook Pro, while is not a hassle at all, the MacBook Air is going to be lighter and the design is a bit slimmer. You get the slim sides as opposed to the more raised edges on the MacBook Pro. Overall, it's just a slimmer device in a nicer form factor. Now, this one is something that I alluded to earlier in the video, but that is the keyboard. Now, the keyboard on this full-fledged, you get the function row keys back, which is a great benefit, because honestly, there were times where I had to restart my computer because the touch bar on the MacBook Pro just did not work. It was frozen. I'm trying to turn on the volume and it does not work. It's really annoying. It's just good to have this where you don't need to rely on software to do something as turning up the volume and just using your computer. The experience with the function row is amazing. It's just It's weird that this is something that's a benefit because it's just how it should be. And although the touch bar is cool, I think it will be better implemented as an additional row to the actual function keys where you could just do more. Or if you're somebody that does coding or anybody that really just relies on the function keys, you're gonna wanna go with the M1 MacBook Air instead. Now, the next reason why you should get the M1 MacBook Air over the MacBook Pro is because the displays are really similar. I mean, it's basically the same panel on both of the devices. You have to go to the Pro if you're somebody that needed things to be color accurate, if you're a photographer, somebody that color grades, or anybody that just needs things to be crisp and the colors are accurate, then you need to get the MacBook Pro. But again, that is in the past. Apple has changed that. They've added better display on the MacBook Air this time around. So it's a bit easier to do things. Me as a photographer, someone that does work in photography, someone that makes YouTube videos, it's very important to have things color accurate. So I'm okay with the MacBook Air and not having the MacBook Pro. The benefit that you do get with the MacBook Pro though is the fact that you get the extra 100 nits of brightness that I mentioned earlier. If you're editing outdoors, it comes in handy. Or if you just need the screen to be at the brightest that it can be, again, the extra 100 nits on the brightness is useful. You might as well get the Pro. However, if you're editing indoors, such as myself, the difference is not really that crazy. It's still a pretty crisp display on the MacBook Air and you can get a lot done. The last reason why you should get the M1 MacBook Air over the MacBook Pro is Apple, for some reason, is obsessed with giving us less and less ports, which I hate as somebody that needs more ports. You might have been somebody that was enticed to go with the MacBook Pro because it gives you the 4-port option. This time around, I guess the M1 MacBook Air only supports 2 outputs. I'm not sure what the deal is, but they did not create a version with 4 USB-C ports, which is kind of annoying, but it's good if you're looking into the MacBook Air because you don't need to switch computer lines in order to get more ports. They both have 2 ports only. That's good and bad. Like I said, the good is that, you don't need to switch lines. You could get the MacBook Air. You don't need to buy the Pro and pay the extra to get the Pro if you want more ports. You can just go with the M1 MacBook Air and that's it. So let me know what you guys think. Are you guys deciding between the two? My full video review is dropping soon. I'm still using the computer and enjoying it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the video, go ahead, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, go ahead, give it a thumbs down. I'm gonna see you guys in the next one. Peace.